Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to our very first Hangout Live with the amazing Jo from Amaranth. Jo is our Glow Life team nutritionist, and she helped to create the first module alongside me. And she was just absolutely amazing at it. I've really respected Jo for quite a while with a lot of the work that she does, the shop that she has, and the products that she sells in there. And she really knows her stuff. So I'm really excited to have her here just for a bit of a chat, to kind of talk about nutrition and talk about like what we eat, because it's such an integral part of everything that we do and where we get our energy from and how we can like glow from the inside out. So thanks so much for joining me, Jo.
That's okay. I have no idea what you can see. So I guess, can you see me here?
Yeah, we can see you fine. You can just see the background, so it's not a problem.
Right. Okay, that's fine. So,
cool.
Hi.
I'm just going to check one thing really quickly just to make sure. Yeah, perfect, that we're live. That's great. Okay, yes, so basically, I've got a couple of questions that have kind of come through, and then also a couple of questions that myself I think would be really useful for people to kind of know about. So the first one we're just going to kick off with is, should you be having 3 big meals a day or several small meals throughout the day?
Okay, so when I was trained in nutrition, it was always you had small meals throughout the day to keep your blood sugar balanced, and therefore you were getting the energy from your food. As long as you're eating the right things, that energy would keep you going, but then you would kind of top up throughout the day. Since then, like most things in nutrition, more information's come out which says actually maybe that's not the best thing to do. It is actually quite good to introduce kind of a little bit of a mini fast every now and again. The right answer, I believe, a not very helpful answer, is that actually there is a different thing for each person.
Yeah.
The same thing we find all the time is you'll read one research study that tells you this is definitely what we need to do. You read another one that says this is definitely what we need to do. Between all the ones that are published, there was probably 25 others. I genuinely believe it depends on your activity levels. It depends on what you're eating as well. So if you're eating a good breakfast, lots of protein, some eggs, some spinach, or big porridge, lots and lots of things, for you, that possibly is enough. And that might be enough for you to take you to lunchtime. Somebody else, like I'm a 4 or 5 small meal person, so I'll have my breakfast, and to be honest, sometimes I look at it and think, oh, that's quite a lot. 11 o'clock, I am starving. And for me, that is telling me, no, actually, I'm not just being greedy here. I need to have some food right now. And we are all different. We all do different things. You know, we might do exercise. We might do a slower paced job, so we're not so active. But people have all got different needs. Plus, people have got different appetites. So what's right for one person to have like an enormous breakfast? Some people are like, I just cannot face food until 11 o'clock. I don't believe there's one scientific answer. But the important thing to do, whichever of those 2 approaches that you go with, is you want to sort of spread the energy out, so that if you go with the 4 or 5 meals, you've got the same amount spread throughout the day. You know, that danger to go, oh, I need to eat. And particularly at the moment, one thing to watch for is there's so many like healthy snacks around, so many healthy energy balls. There is still a lot of energy in them. So there is that temptation to go, right, I'll have a huge breakfast. Oh, and now I'm going to have one of these enormous date and cacao balls, which are great for you for all the nutrients, but sometimes you can end up throughout the course of the day kind of thinking, oh, actually, maybe that was a bit too much throughout the whole day. It's unfortunately not a straight answer. Either approach. The one thing I would say with that, though, is whichever of the approaches you take during the day, I would say there's definitely a lot of validity into trying to finish your main meal, whether it's 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then ideally having a 12-hour period in between. There's a lot more information coming out about that recently. Again, that kind of mini fast gives your body a break, lets the digestion, just you don't need that energy overnight, unless obviously you're someone who's doing night shifts or whatever. You generally don't need the energy overnight. So just to give you that kind of break in between, that is a good thing to do. Sort of too many late night eating, sitting on your stomach, not having a chance to digest it properly overnight.
Perfect. That's great. That's really interesting, actually, just because I am very much, I have to eat every 3 hours or at the most every 4 hours. Otherwise, I can feel my blood sugar level drop. I get hangry so badly and I have to have a snack there. And then it's like, there's no waiting for like 10 minutes for my dinner to cook. It's like, I have to eat there and then, otherwise I'm going to kill someone.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. I mean, at work, if I've not eaten by 11 o'clock, they bring me something because they can always see that I just start to get that kind of bit more impatient and a bit more like, no, I want something now. So they just kind of bring me something and then I'm fine again. Yeah, I mean, it's probably, we're like that a little bit because of habit, as if we've got used to eating that way. But it's also, everybody's body does work differently. Everyone's lifestyle is different. So
yeah, cool. All right then. So what are the absolute healthiest foods that you would recommend eating daily?
Okay, so the good old nuts and seeds come into it for lots of different reasons. They really are kind of a complete food. You've got some protein in there, you've got some complex carbohydrates, you've got fiber, you've got things like your vitamin E, you've got your essential oils. So they really do kind of, and you can just pick them up and eat them. So they really do really pack a lot in them. Don't need masses of them. You don't necessarily you don't eat the same volume as you might do of something like brown rice or veggies, but really do contain loads and loads of nutrients. So that would be the first one. I would say, particularly for women, your brassica vegetables, your broccoli, particularly the green leafies, but your broccoli, your cauliflower, sprouts, kale, things like that. Really good for all the nutrients in them. They're the sort of few vegetables that might have a bit of iron in them, but also for the liver detoxification, particularly for the pathways that detoxify estrogen. Yeah. So they're always really good things to have. And then on top of that, so we've got nuts and seeds. And then I probably would say beans, pulses, lentils that people don't eat as much, not as sure what to do with. Again, particularly for female health, but they're rich in fibre. What fibre will do is again with estrogens, fibre will help to bind to estrogen, so you can excrete estrogens through the digestive system as you should do, rather than them kind of recirculating. They've also got, if you were to really look at them under microscope, these little phytoestrogen structures, which are structures within plants that might mimic very slightly your body's natural estrogen. But it's just a good all-rounder, and it's got some protein in. So yeah, it's not going to change your estrogen levels or anything like that. It's not to that extent, but it's just that kind of balancing. And the things that we don't eat a lot of, they're a good source of vegetable protein. People tend to think of protein as eggs, meat, fish. Your beans and pulses are an alternative, and ideally get organic sources, but you haven't got some of the same problems as you perhaps get with overeating on meat and fish and things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. What do you think about
vegetables?
Yeah, the veggies. What about like your fatty acids, like your omega-3, 6s and 9s?
Yeah, love particularly omega-3s, but a good balance, and always try and find the balance that you find in nature. So getting your omega-3s from nuts and seeds is great, and also from oily fish. So different types, you'll get different types of oils and different things. So things like your oily fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, they tend to be rich in your omega-3. Omega-3 being very good for inflammation. It directly affects one of the pathways that produces inflammation. So if you're somebody who might struggle with something like psoriasis, eczema, that are quite inflammatory conditions, or even joint pain, your body's producing inflammatory chemicals for some reason. Omega-3s might help to work with that inflammation. Also, every one of your cells, your skin cells, or all your cells in your body have got this fatty acid membrane. So kind of feeding some more essential fats into the body is going to be good. So mainly omega-3s in your fish, but then your more plant sources tend to have a bit of a blend, and they can be a blend of 3, 6 and 9. you get a lot of SIX through meat, particularly meats and animal products. So that type of SIX we might not need as much of, but then you will get that good balance in plant oils, things like your flax oil. You can drizzle things like your Udo's oil on foods and salads, or just neck it.
Yeah. That's what I do. Yeah. Okay, great. So this is kind of a leading question because I kind of know the answer to it already, but I think it's good to talk about. So, like, how much does diet really play into healthy hair, skin, and strong nails?
Okay, I would say, gosh, I'd say it's an enormous part. I mean, I couldn't even give an estimate, but, you know, I'm going like, let's say 75, it's in the 75-80%. There will always be some genetics at play. There'll definitely be some lifestyle factors at play. Yeah. So particularly with skin, smoking and sunlight, maybe just in the 60s. But the other things I'm thinking, you know, in terms of getting those antioxidants in, so even going back to the example of smoking and sunlight, smoking and sunlight creates damage. It creates these things called free radicals. Yeah. Within your diet, you can put antioxidants back in. Antioxidants can go some way to mopping up that damage. Looking at things like collagen. Collagen's the structure underneath the skin that keeps the skin firm. And one of the key components to making collagen is vitamin C. We're not going to get vitamin C unless we ingest foods that have got vitamin C. Healthy hair, if you haven't got enough iron in your iron stores, your hair can snap off and break without other nutrients. You can just look kind of sallow, like that kind of energy's been drained out of you. So yeah, it is really, really important, and just important to get a good balance of things. I mean, we see quite a lot, because we've got a shop where we offer nutritional advice as well as the clinic. A lot of people who've been following a diet, whether it's a shake diet or something like that, first thing they notice is the hair. The hair's falling out. Yeah. The skin doesn't look vibrant. And that's because although, yes, they might have met their weight loss goal, they've not had the nutrients that they need. So I'd say, I mean, like I say, couldn't give a number on it, but it's at a high end of skin, hair and nails. And then on top of it, you've got lifestyle factors. You could have an absolutely perfect diet, but if you go to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, smoke, and then lie on a sunbed the rest of the day, you're not going to look that great. But it's got, you know, goes a massive way to kind of repairing and helping the skin. I mean, I know even through personal experience, I did not eat well as a teenager. I really, really didn't. And my skin was awful. Now, there's some hormonal factors, but that carried on even into my 20s. Mm-hmm. And it's really since I've completely changed on nutrition for various reasons, that, you know, the last 15 years since I've been doing that, I used to get some massive old, you know, even at the age of like 25, I'd have some massive oil on my head that was just this really, and just don't get that anymore. So
yeah, well, okay then. So I always find it so fascinating just kind of talking about that, because as I do a lot of beauty on my channel, the main focus from a lot of people is just beauty questions, you know, what's the best product for this and what's the best product for that? And I'm like, I can tell you amazing products, but at the same time, you've got to understand that what I really believe in is if you don't look after yourself in terms of eating well and getting enough sleep and drinking enough water and doing meditation and making sure you're kind of doing things that you love, then you're just never really going to get that look that you're really, really going for and you really, really want. So yeah, it's so interesting kind of talking about that sort of thing, because it is it's a holistic life, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other half of our shop, really, we do an awful lot of nutrition stuff. The other half is natural beauty. We've got some fantastic natural beauty brands. If someone comes in with a skin concern, or they've come in, I want the best eye cream for the bags under my eyes, poor things will never actually get away with just that, because they have to have the whole spiel from us about, well, actually, you've got to consider this, particularly with those inflammatory skin conditions, you know, particularly with psoriasis and things like that. If they thought they were just coming in for a quick cream, they've got to go through the whole
I love that though about your place, because like you go in for a beauty product and then you actually come out with like a whole heap of knowledge and yeah, just a wealth of knowledge that you never actually expected. So I feel like you just go above and beyond with your help with your customers in that sense. So you're great. So okay. What's the one food that you would tell your clients to stop eating? What's the one thing that time and time again they just ask you about, and if you could just tell everybody just stop eating this, what would it be?
Okay, I think it's a bit of a basic answer, but it's the good old sugar, and it's more than, well, no, it's not sugar actually. It's diet drinks.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think we've just seen that switch from sugar's addictive. So there's that kind of, right, we'll move on to these diet drinks. And I kind of feel as though if you put a normal can of Coke in front of me and a Diet Coke and I had to drink one, which I really don't want to, yeah, I'd have to go the full fat Coke, because at least sugar has come from somewhere natural at some point. Yes, it's been refined, blah, 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 blah. The stuff that goes into diet drinks. And I see time and time again, and one day if I could do a research study on this, the most people I see that are struggling with diet and struggling to get back on track are relying on diet drinks, because I think people feel hungrier with it. It's introducing all these chemicals into the body. You've still got all the colours, the sweeteners, and all of those things, and it's that area that almost concerns me more. Definitely, that's not saying I like sugars, because I really don't. There's definitely too much sugar around there. There's massively too much supersizing. And I think what we're kind of seeing now is we've seen that whole kind of, we know about the McDonald's, the Coke junk food. And the thing I'm seeing more now is that almost the kind of the next generation of the coffee shops where things are just getting bigger, the big frappes, which still people kind of think maybe sort of almost weirdly fit into a health category, because it's like, oh, it's just a coffee shop. We kind of know KFC and McDonald's, it's not going to be great. People still have them and that's their choice. But I think that the coffees are getting bigger. Everything's getting bigger. The cake that goes with the coffee is getting bigger. So sugars, I would always kind of, come back to sugars, but the whole diet drink thing is, and energy drinks as well. Diet drinks and energy drinks, particularly for kids, because that is ridiculous.
No.
You've got, my boys will do, maybe they'll do tennis for like an hour and a half or something, and then all the boys in the class have got like Lucasade, and you don't need it for an hour and a half class when you've just kind of run up and down there. Yeah. So yeah, one day I'll start my campaign.
I love it. So what is the one best piece of nutritional advice that you could give to somebody?
I would say, to put you completely on the spot, I would say when you're eating, sit down, look at what you're eating, consider what you're eating, enjoy what you're eating. And with doing those things, you will start to look and you'll start to appreciate what you're eating. And I really genuinely feel you then make better choices. Because you sit down and you look at a plate. Generally now, not everybody, but generally now people have got a reasonable idea about what's a healthy plate.
Yeah.
If you sit down and you're going to tuck into a meal, you look in front of you and you've got colours, you've got good fresh food, you will feel good about that plate. If you look down and consider what you're eating and it's not so great, the next time you might not make those same choices. We don't have to be perfect. We're not looking for perfection all the time, but that, I guess it's mindfulness, that thought process, taking the time to eat.
Yeah, I love that so much, just because I'm very much, I'll sit down and I'll eat my 3 meals, and I very much try to have them away from my desk. I don't always manage that. Like this evening, I was messaging you and I was like, I just sat here eating. But And so I eat really healthy meals, but I sometimes struggle with snacks. And I'm just like, and I think it's because I get hungry so quickly and it just hits me like a ton of bricks. So I'm like, I need something immediately and I just have to scoff it. So it's just, it's a really great piece of advice for you. Like, okay, just breathe for a second and then like sit down. If you're going to have a snack, just sit down and enjoy it and see what you're eating, because it definitely makes you think, okay, well, I've sat down to enjoy this thing, whether it's soul food or whether it's healthy. It kind of doesn't matter in one sense if it's like every now and again you're having soul food, but it's just about like taking the time to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I love that advice.
Yeah.
So I know that I wanted to ask you a little bit about micronutrients, because I feel like this is an area that's really kind of I feel it's under talked about quite a lot. And everybody kind of knows that they need to have their protein and their carb and their veggies on their plate. And and then you have like your nuts and your seeds and everything as well. But I feel like we also miss out on quite a lot of these micronutrients that we really, really need when we don't actually realize it. So I was wondering whether you could just kind of talk a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think possibly we see more of that when, first of all, we've all got a tendency to eat the things we eat. And whether those are super healthy foods, whether those are not so great, we've all kind of got patterns, and it can be quite easy to have a very similar thing for lunch each day. And then, dinner's a bit of a variation, but that does restrict the nutrients you get in overall. So it is one of the things that we'll always do with somebody is we'll say, right, let's look at your food diary, and we'll say, right, actually, you're probably missing some magnesium, some zinc or whatever. The main things in terms of, I'm kind of talking female health, but it doesn't have to be actually. The reason for doing that is we do all have different demands. Kids have got different demands than teenagers, males and females. But the things to consider, and the things I possibly see people being a bit more deficient in these days, is calcium, particularly in women, I think can be a problem. And I am probably guilty of this like anybody. And I do now take like a calcium powder that I put in a smoothie, because a lot of us are concerned by dairy products. We're concerned about what goes into dairy products. There are potentially associations with inflammation, skin health and things like that. So we kind of go, oh, we don't want dairy. And there's another argument, which how much do we absorb from the calcium from dairy? But even so, traditionally calcium, the main source of calcium in the diet has come from dairy products. And there's a lot of people who cut that out. And that's probably okay at the moment, but you need to keep building your bone health. And I think it'll be interesting to see what's happening in 15, 20 years time, when the sort of generation of us get a little bit older, or I'm certainly a bit older than you anyway, generation of me gets a bit older. And it will be interesting to see whether there are impacts on bone health and bone density. So that's certainly one thing. Magnesium is a huge one. And the other point to make, I think, with minerals in general is, unfortunately, our fruit and vegetables are more lacking in minerals than they used to be. You've only got to see how long it can be from something being picked to it going through a distribution centre, to a warehouse, to a supermarket shelf, and a bit of plastic around it. And I'd love to be perfect and pop off in the morning and pick my own. But generally, I don't live near a biodynamic farm and go off and get it. So we've got what we've got, and we do the best with what we've got. But I think magnesium is definitely something to consider. Magnesium is a cofactor, I think, in about 300 different processes in the body, from and it also goes into each cell to create energy. So where we feel tired, where we just don't have that kind of get up and go, that might be that we need a bit more magnesium for muscles, aches and pains. Also, magnesium is used a lot for people who are stressed, tend to burn through a lot of magnesium. So you get magnesium in your common theme here. Green leafy veg, nuts and seeds, beans and pulses, your almonds and things like that. So magnesium, definitely one to watch. And then the other ones, oh gosh, there's so many. B vitamins. B vitamins useful for lots of different things, again, for creation of energy, but also your neurotransmitters that are those feel-good chemicals in the brain. They go into helping create things like serotonin, some of the feelings that control things like anxiety. B vitamins, beans and pulses, brown rice, your whole grains. So again, potentially where people have tried to go sort of a bit more wheat-free, probably reduces down a bit the amount of B vitamins that people are taking in. And then I think the other two big ones would be, well, iron, folate, and B12, all of which go to help create your red blood cells. Iron for energy, for healthy hair growth. You get your iron in red meat, you get some in your spinach and your green leafy veg. It's absorbed better with vitamin C. So although you don't necessarily want to have loads of kind of juices and things like that, things like red peppers are going to be rich in vitamin C, blueberries. So if you do eat red meat, having some red peppers chopped into like a bolognese or something like that would just maybe provide a bit more vitamin C. Tomatoes as well, so different ways to absorb it.
That's so interesting. And it is really, really interesting about like magnesium and things, and especially just relating to energy. And like if you're burning through lots of energy, then you might need some more magnesium, and also how it can be like lots of things can be related to anxiety. I just think it's super interesting. So with this is a slightly random question, but with us talking, well, as you look at clients and you review, say, their food diary, do you ever recommend that they have a blood test? And if to like check for allergies, and if so, what blood test do you recommend? Because there are so many out there now that it's confusing as to what is a decent blood test and what's just one that you're going to pay 150 quid for and you're not going to find anything out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so there's a few things with that. So when we talk to somebody, we look at their diet diary, we look at their symptoms, we see how they're feeling. There is often the case that there are some tests that can be done through the GP. So first thing to do, if somebody's feeling particularly tired all the time, if they're having problems, examples of being they're struggling with the hair's falling out, going to the GP and requesting their iron levels, potentially their ferritin, and maybe even their thyroid. Usually the best thing to do is to kind of approach the GP with, here's the symptoms I've got, and hopefully they'll kind of do a full blood count. And then just having a look at those levels on the blood test. They're reasonably easy to interpret, but a nutritionist can help you interpret them anyway. You normally get a score between a range. So let's take, for example, that the range is between 20 and 300. Can you still hear me? It's getting a bit noisy in the back. You're right.
Right.
The range is between, say, 20 and 300. You might be on about 23, 24. Now, within the medical profession, that's fine, you're within range. If you took that to, I'd always say go to a band-registered nutritionist, so British Association registered. They might look at that and go, actually, you're at the lower end. We'll look to either increase those foods or supplement. So the main ones that your GP will do, your GP will look at things like your glucose test, say iron, ferritin, folate potentially, and B12. The other test that I really, really would recommend is the vitamin D test. Unless you're kind of going on sunny holidays and spending a lot of time kind of in the sun, a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. It's not generally done by NHS unless there's reasons for it. So there are private blood tests for vitamin D. It's a simple skin prick blood test. It's done really, really simply. I mean, we do it from the clinic, but lots of people will do it for you. You can actually do them through the NHS labs. You can apply for them. I can provide details of those. And literally a skin prick blood test, and the results come back in about 2 weeks. So vitamin D for everybody, really. I didn't mention it before, but helps to get your calcium into your bones to start with, so the whole kind of osteoporosis side of things, but also it's been linked with the immune system, potentially things like seasonal affective disorder, mood, so quite a few. And people generally now more deficient in vitamin D because we're slapping on a load of sunscreen and not necessarily absorbing it. So vitamin D test. With regards to food tests and food allergies, it's more likely to be people wanting to have a test for a food intolerance. The two things are quite different and different signals in the body. An allergy tends to come up within probably about an hour to 4 hours, whatever. Usually quite specific symptoms. So whether it's a skin rash, whether it's an immediate digestive thing. So allergies actually are easier to pinpoint. What people are more interested in is intolerances. And this is where they're kind of having those low level reactions all the time. Not sure. Intolerances can come up 12 to 24 hours afterwards. Not really sure what's causing them. So we do recommend intolerance testing. However, we recommend it with a sort of caution and a caveat. The only one, we've looked into lots and lots of different ones. The only ones we will recommend are ones that are a skin prick test that looks for something called IgG, which is a new marker when your body comes into contact with a certain food. These are not 100% accurate, and there's no point in pretending they are, because they're not. There's lots of different reasons your body can react to things. IgG is just one of those things. And there is no doubt that people tend to get reactions displayed more to things they eat a lot of. But that is also probably because they've been overexposed to those things, so they're reacting anyway.
Yeah.
So the way that we approach this, and I know a lot of nutritional therapists in other areas approach this, is we will recommend, and we do a skin prick blood test, and we do that from the clinic. The one that we do test for 55 different foods, you can do them where you send off, for example, for York test that does up to 200, I think 250. And the way we do that is it's done by a nutritionist, so that we're kind of taking that information as part of the jigsaw. So we're also talking about digestive health. We're talking about the symptoms somebody's getting. We're talking about health history. Have they had a lot of medications? Have they had a lot of antibiotics? So yes, we're going to get a response to certain foods, but we're kind of going to try and identify why that's happened, and also advise people on what they then do. Because what we don't want to do is just get a list of 100 foods that you react to and you just go, no idea what to do now. And then people get into that cycle of really being scared to eat anything, and then they're not sure because they don't want that, and they don't want that, and then they go, I'll blow it, I'll eat everything. And that's also why we've selected the one primarily with just the 55 different foods, because then it's more manageable. It's more manageable to say. There's kind of pros and cons of it. I mean, yes, it might be missing something from the 200 list, but it also means, right, okay, here's a starting point program. We're going to start with this. We're going to see how you get on, and we're going to look to do the kind of building repair work at the same time. So that's that one. I mean, other tests, gosh, there's lots of them. We can do, or nutritionists can have access to things like digestive stool tests, more detailed thyroid testing, and they're all done through sort of private labs. But the main kind of everyday one-ish tends to be food intolerance testing, vitamin D test.
Yeah, cool. That's super interesting. I actually quite like to get it done, so I might come and speak to you about it. Because I've never had it done. But okay, well, I know I've taken up a lot of your time already. We've been chatting for like 40 minutes, and I could just talk to you all day because it's so fascinating. I'm just going to double check. I don't think there was any other questions that had come through. No, not yet. So if you do have any questions that you would like Jo to answer, she is in the private Facebook group. And again, I just want to reiterate, the Facebook group is completely private. Nobody apart from the Glow Life people who bought the course, so the students can see. They're the only people that can see it. So it is completely a safe zone to be able to ask any questions to Jo in there. Also, I know that Jo doesn't mind you messaging her directly if you'd like to as well. That is okay, isn't it, Jo? Just checking.
Yeah, absolutely. Just message me on the only thing, I mean, I'm trying so hard, but I feel like there's so many messaging things now. So if I don't get back to you within half an hour, it's just because I have to keep looking between like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram. I'm like, but yes, I will get back to you, definitely.
Cool, yeah. No worries. All right, well, thank you so much for your time, Jo. I think that's been absolutely brilliant, and you've given some really amazing knowledge out there. So have a lovely evening, and thank you everyone so much for watching, and we will see you in the Facebook group. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.